Okay, it's 4 o'clock on Thursday, June 14th. We have a quorum, so I'll call this New Ulm Public Library Board meeting to order. First item is the approval of the agenda. Everyone has their packets, so the agenda is printed out before them. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I so move to approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. So now we're going to have some discussion because there's a couple changes. Chris has indicated under the librarian's report, number 8, she would like added on there is sidewalk repair update. And then also under the action items, we're going to be doing resolution number 2018-18 first, prior to 2018-16 and 17. The reason for that is the 16 and 17 are approving donations or approving the expenditure of donations, but the donations have to occur first, which is the resolution 2018-18. So it'll be out of order number-wise, but it'll make more sense logistically. Any other changes, Chris?
No.
All right, so with those changes, and I have a second, a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any other discussion? All right, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carried. Second item is the approval of the minutes from the May 10th, 2018 Library Board meeting. Again, these are all in the packet, and so I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes. I will make the motion to approve the minutes from the May 10th meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any changes, additions, corrections that anybody's aware of? All right, not hearing any, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carried. Third item is the May 2018 financial report and summary. Chris?
Thank you. That begins on page 7. We're 42.5% through our calendar year, and our budget is about 38.48% expended. We did purchase computers for the acquisitions and youth services librarians, and those are reflected in computer supplies and equipment, and they have been installed and seem to be working well. The sidewalks were repaired, and that bill is going to come out of contractual maintenance building. Carpet installation's complete, and that will be paid for from library interior renovation, and that was budgeted to come out of fund balance. We actually did send the invoice through this week.
And just to point out, it's not a complete carpet redoing, it's just the phase that we had agreed upon to do.
Correct. $9,200 was the final
Okay.
cost. Expenses are as expected, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, hearing none, then we'll move on to the librarian's report. We'll start with the department activities report and statistics. Chris?
Thank you. All the library staff attended Alice Active Shooter Training on May 18th, and we had a very good session. We also had some folks from NewCat and a couple of other city departments in with us. Brady Murphy from the New Ulm PD, as well as representatives from the Brown County Sheriff's Department and the Sleepy Eye Police Department were there to help us, and thanks to April, she's the one who got that organized with Commander Borgert. The library summer reading program is kicked off, and as of today, there are 728 registrations. We're really thrilled about that. We're going electronic registration for the first time. There are over 600 of those. Just over 100 still are with the paper registration. And lots of activities happening at the library. They were just at the archery range this afternoon. There were drums earlier this week, Legos this morning. There's something every day. New Ulm Community Education scheduled a bus trip for residents to see the Hamilton musical. So April is working with Community Ed and Castle Lifelong Learning to have a library piece involved based on a discussion of the Alexander Hamilton book, which is the biography on which the play is based, and that'll be in September. The 5 library supervisors, all of us who are full-time, attended respectful workplace training provided by the city on May 24th. Lisa Sieve, our reference librarian, and I have been working on the Memory Lab grant, and now April has joined in on those conversations. There have been a couple of articles in the paper, and then our next step is to have a class to help people sort their stuff, which is going to be tonight. It'll be our first public class related to this Memory Lab grant. I attended the Lake Superior Library Symposium last Friday in Duluth and co-hosted a lightning round session with the MLC Library Director, Linda Cromer. 2 libraries, 1 community. We talked about how MLC and New Ulm Public Library work well together they each have separate cards, separate registration systems, but when you check out a book or return items, it's seamless. You don't need additional documentation to do that. And the library hosted TDS Library Cooperative Board for its monthly meeting on May 17th. And a big thanks to April for filling in. I got called to jury duty that morning, and April stepped right up and took over and gave them a great tour. And the TDS Automation Librarian and I met with New Ulm Middle School teachers and administrators to talk about the Public Library Cards for Students project. That is on hold for the moment as we talk to our city attorney about the memorandum of understanding. So we don't have anything for the library board to look at this point. And then Leah Zaccotti joined the staff as a library aide. She previously worked as a library assistant at Bethany Lutheran College, and so we welcome her aboard. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So what was when you attended the Lake Superior Symposium and they talked about the 2 libraries, 1 community, and you said you had a lightning round session, what does that consist of?
It's just a shorter time frame.
Oh, okay.
Where we have 10 to 12 minutes to talk about what we're doing and answer questions.
Okay.
It's a brief introduction to, we're just featuring one piece of this cooperation.
Okay. Anything else? All right, then we'll move on to programming. April.
Programming for adults for the summer has slowed down a bit as we all focus on summer reading. So in our upcoming programs, we have on Monday, June 18th at 7 p.m., Concert in the Park featuring Lance Dale and Jeremy Poland. We did receive legacy funding for that, and we're partnering with Parks and Rec. This is part of their summer concert series in German Park. On Tuesday, June 19th and June 26th at 2 p.m., we have musical talent on the Children's Room stage. And if anyone is interested in performing, they can book their act at the Children's Room desk. We still have some availability for performers. On Tuesday, June 19th at 6:30 p.m., we have a drumming group in the Children's Room. Drums are provided. On Thursday, June 21st and June 28th, we have at 10 a.m. the Lego Club. We had a Lego Club, I think it was yesterday morning or to this morning, and the room was full again. So the Lego Club is proving really popular. On Thursday, June 21st at 3 p.m., we have a special drumming group, Drum Fun with Junk Funk, say that really fast 5 times, and that will be at German Park, and that's also a legacy-funded program for kids. On Tuesday, June 26th at 6:30 p.m., we have geocaching at Riverside Park with Scott Kadelka from the DNR. On Thursday, June 28th at 1 p.m., we have rock art at the library where kids can come in and paint rock art to take home with them. On Thursday, June 28th at 6 p.m., we have a family film night, which is sponsored by the Optimist Club of New Ulm, so thank you to them for their sponsorship of that. On Tuesday, Tuesday, July 10th at 6:30, we have Learn About Animal Tracks and Signs with Scott Kudelka from the DNR at the library again. And then on Wednesday, July 11th at 10 a.m., we have Angie's Art at the library, which is another legacy-funded program for us where kids can make an art project to take home with them. Does anyone have any questions on upcoming programs?
Got a lot going on.
Yes.
All right, and we'll move on to the staffing update. Chris.
A note about Human Resources facilitating the recruitment for the library director position. Shauna Boomgarden, the HR director, would like a representative from the library board to sit on the interview panel. Historically, for the library director's position, the last 2 recruitments, the board chair has sat in on it. Shauna said that that's not necessary, but she is asking for someone, a name that I can give her and contact information.
Do they know what time the interviews will happen? I mean, because
No,
if it's
but
done.
historically, they've worked around the library board person's schedule.
Well, if no one else is gonna jump in, you know, you can give her my name.
Okay. That's all I have on the staffing update.
All right, and we'll go to the carpet update then.
As previously noted, that was the phase one of a multi-year project to replace carpet and flooring. We're very pleased with the project, and the vendor was great to work with. They were able to accommodate us, so we did not have to close. And I think it looks really nice, particularly in our the service center area as well as the meeting room. Really spruced up that space.
So yeah, if you haven't had a chance to look at the carpet update and the, what was that stuff we put down?
Vinyl plank flooring. Yeah.
And so in the service area and then in the back entrance, they have that. That looks really sharp. I like how that looks. And then the carpet update, it's the stairway upstairs and then down in the meeting room. It's the same style of carpet, just a different color. It's black versus the brownish tint that goes up the stairs. And then where else is done? Was that it?
That was it.
Okay.
4 places.
All right. Not hearing nothing else then, let's go to the roof update.
Well, we did have a vendor take a look at that roof area, which is right by the service center, that had been leaking so bad over the winter and early spring. And the recommendation is to not replace the roof at this time, to continue to monitor it. It has been patched. The patch has been holding. We've had quite a bit of rain over the last couple of weeks, and we've had no leaks in that area. So we're planning to continue monitoring it. The building official is on board with progressing in that way. So we won't see any expenditure at this point.
You know, can you tell me when did they put the roof on?
I can't. I will find that out. I'm
Not
going to
that important,
say
is it?
it's, I'm not going to be able to
Has it
tell
been
you.
since you've been here?
No.
Okay.
No, it was longer than that. I'm thinking it's more around the 10-year mark, but we'll have to get back to you with that. I
That's
don't know
fine.
off the top of my head.
But that simply means we're getting probably closer to the end and having to redo it than we are at the beginning.
It was scheduled to be replaced in 2019.
Okay. Yeah, that's all we need.
That's all I have on the roof.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the Brown County Library Board update. Chris and/or Carl. Oh, you guys can fight over who wants to give an update.
I thought I'd give as a gift to Chris the fact that I would talk about it a little bit so she could rest. And if I miss anything, I'm sure Chris will jump in. I attended the meeting on Monday evening with Chris and April, and they had a full board present. It was held at the Dickman Library in Sleepy Eye. Commissioner Simonson was present in lieu of Mr. Potter, who had to be away from the meeting. The board had dispersed the funds given to it from the county for the support of the 5 libraries in the county, and that amounted to $7,763 each library received. The board also moved to have Library Director Kelton from Sleepy Eye Library draft a letter to present to the county administrator that the library board is going to ask for a 5% increase in the county contribution for 2019, and that presentation will be made at the county commissioners meeting in August to present that the position of the county library board. And then the libraries from around the county all gave a little updates of what was occurring in their libraries, and it sounds similar to our library, that they all are very busy this time of the year and a lot of activities and programs, and folks, younger folks are keeping pretty active with their summer reading programs throughout the county, which is good to hear.
Carl gave a great report, but he forgot one very important piece, that he is now the vice president of the Brown County Library Board.
That's so important.
You know what happens when you volunteer?
Precisely.
All right, well, great. Then I will look forward to continued further updates then from Carl. And then, so now who or is April then going to take over as going in your stead for those, or how is that going to work?
Typically, it's not something that the directors are required to attend, and I have attended sporadically over the years, so it's not something that's absolutely necessary. But the next meeting in November is in New Ulm. And so
okay.
the host library, the library director typically attends to make sure that everything is set up.
Yeah. Well, we may have a new director by then, so then, okay. All right. Any questions for Carl or Chris on that update? Okay, then we'll move on to the Children's Room Committee update. Margaret's not here, so I guess, Chris, you'll have to,
It's
maybe
me.
she was afraid to present today, that's why she didn't show up.
The Children's Room Committee met at the end of May and decided, it was a small group, so decided to continue meeting through the summer to develop a vision for what the Children's Room could become to present to the director when the director comes on board. So there would be no decisions made, nothing coming to the library board at that time. They want to talk about the possibilities, and again, having some kind of vision for that space that they could present to the director. And so Jan Cavania, our youth services librarian, is taking the lead on setting the meetings and running them and taking notes.
I take it before they want to come before the board, then they want to talk to the new director and make sure,
Right,
okay?
right.
So basically, anything goes just within the confines of that area?
Right, and the budget, but
Yeah.
they won't even be looking at funding at this point. It really is, what do they want, what are their goals for the
Yeah.
space? Really looking at the big picture.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the strategic things that we just went through as a library, but just for
Right.
that area.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then the added item, the sidewalk repair update.
Right, and I don't know why I neglected to add this to the agenda, except that it was such a project that I maybe wanted to forget about it. The sidewalk repair occurred in the back. That's what the library board had approved. There were 3 larger slabs in the back that really needed some repair to get rid of uneven spaces. And at the same time, we had discovered that, I don't know when it occurred, but by the Wandagog sculpture area, there was a broken piece of sidewalk. And so we asked that company what they would charge to do the repair of that at the same time, and it was a minimal cost. And so we just asked them to do it at the same time. Well, that was a day it rained so terribly bad that they had some problems with the sidewalk. So it's a little bit bumpy, I would say, in a couple of places, but I felt it's perfectly adequate. What the vendor has said they would do is give us that repaired area by the sculpture at no charge if we wanted to keep it the way it is. Otherwise, they would tear it all up and redo it. But I feel like it's perfectly adequate for what we need. And to get that space at no cost, it would have been $300 more. I thought that was a really nice option for us to have. Well, that was just one piece. So when they were tearing up the old sidewalk in the back, and we're talking right by the door that goes out to the book drop, they hit a cable, an electric cable, that had migrated up out of the ground. And so it cut power to the bunker, which is where we need a light in there. It's a storage area. And so we had to have full service come by immediately to fix that. So that got fixed. Well, then Jay, our maintenance tech, came back again because it was supposed to trip a breaker that didn't trip. And so that needs to be repaired. And so that piece I have 2 bids on, and the lower bid is $758. That could get fixed next week. We have money in our contractual maintenance building fund to handle that cost. Well, then Jay came back one more time because the automatic door button for the handicap accessibility, that post is corroded. And so when they pulled it out of the concrete, they can't put it back. And that's another $650. And so what started out as a simple sidewalk repair project has now cost us quite a bit of money, but all of these things would have, I guess, eventually come up anyway.
So the money that we saved on the one slab that we didn't have to pay for, does that balance out everything else that has to be done?
Yes. And poor Jay, by the 3rd time he came in my office, what now?
Well, this thing really just cascaded into a,
It became something much greater than what we expected.
so the cable was repaired, the electrical cable was repaired, so the light works in the bunker.
Yes.
But the other 2 things need to be done, the breaker work and then the replacing of the handicap push button.
Correct.
Well, it sounds to me like the breaker's supposed to be working in the first place, so.
They both need to be
Yeah.
fixed, and
Yeah.
you know that's what our
Just old.
that's what our contractual maintenance building fund is for.
Right.
So the post has been ordered. Jay got 2 bids on the breaker repair, and we're going to take the lower bid, which was $758 for that. And I told them I would call him back tomorrow after I'd talked to you, make sure you're fine with us proceeding with those repairs.
So do we need any approval or anything like that? Okay.
Just wanted to give you the update.
One comment, my walker and I are satisfied with the back.
Great.
And we checked it out after the landscaping meeting.
Holly, Vin and I
We,
did, yeah.
Holly and I and Dave went out, and he was the official tester since he had his calibrated walker. And,
I
yeah,
asked it to speak up and it didn't say a word, so.
but yeah, we looked at all of them, and there's there's a little roughness on some of it, but it doesn't impede his walker thing. So we figured it's not going to be noticeable.
It's definitely a great improvement.
Right.
Chris, with these expenses coming out of the contractual fund, once they are paid, what will that leave the balance in that fund?
Let's do a little math here. Right now, we have $5,500 left in that fund, so we need to take out $1,600 for the actual sidewalk repair, so that puts us at $3,900, and then we'll be at about $1,200 for the 2 unexpected expenses, so that puts us at $2,700. Yeah, so $2,700. We started out at $7,000 for that line, so we're halfway through the year.
Tell Jay to stay outside for a while.
Yeah, it was just an unfortunate series of events.
Yeah.
So I think we're in pretty decent shape with that budget line.
Plus that we did notice that the post for the handicap push button that got splattered with concrete too when it poured, and that the base of that all had concrete splatter on it. So getting that replaced is not going to be a big deal then.
No, it's sitting there as a temporary measure. It still works, but it's temporarily in place. It's not a permanent. It's not permanently set into
Yep.
the concrete. So it'll be a simple fix at this point when the new post comes.
All right, anything else for the librarian's report then? Okay, and then we'll move on to the topic that's always near and dear to our heart, the budget discussion. So we'll talk about the 2019 budget. Chris?
That's on page 23. I presented I hope, a detailed explanation of where April and I were thinking, what we were thinking as we were going through the budget. As I mentioned last month, the City Finance Department has the discretion over several of the line items, most significantly the taxes and the expenditures, personal services, which is our staffing. And so the worksheet that's attached shows items in bold where the library board has the input. There will be a cost savings in part-time personnel based on restructuring the library aide position, as I mentioned last month. However, the finance director is recommending a 2.5% increase in salaries. And so making that adjustment, I conservatively estimated an $8,000 savings in the part-time personal services. That is very conservative. The finance department will finalize the personnel costs over the next several weeks. I didn't check today whether the numbers are in there, but they will be in there before the next library board meeting. TDS has come back with us and indicated we should expect a 6.12% increase, which is $1,852 in our fees to them for the year. Our Userful Public Computer System contract expires at the end of 2018. TDS has proposed a Google Chromebox solution that's more cost-effective while retaining the functionality. The city IT manager approved of the solution, came over for the demonstration by the TDS automation librarian. And so I would like the library to convert to that Chromebox solution at the end of the year. The installation will be coordinated with TDS staff, and projected cost savings are listed. I put that on a spreadsheet. Cost savings over 4 years would be about $18,000. 3 years ago, when we looked at solutions, we didn't have a Google Chromebox option. The option that I presented to you was Userful and then kind of a cobbled together solution from various vendors that was a little bit cheaper, but was really, in the end, more difficult as far as the time that we would be spending on it because we were working with several vendors. Here it's kind of an all-in-one solution with one other piece of time management software that would allow us to set stations to run for a particular period of time, allow us to log people off, and have the print management capability that we currently have. So the entire staff liked the solution. It is not perfect. We're going to lose some support ability that we have with Userful. We can call them and they can log into our station, see what we're doing. We're going to lose that piece. But we feel that the cost savings is well worth giving up that support. We also don't have a completely Microsoft Office friendly solution in place. We would only get that with a Windows solution. So we still won't have it. We don't have it now. We won't have it with the Google Chromebox. But again, we think that this is the solution that's going to work for the library for 4 years rather than 3, and at a really good cost savings. If something were to happen to a Chromebox, it's a couple $100. You just replace the Chromebox. And what I show in the budget is that there's a reflection of an increase of $1,500 in computer supplies and equipment and a decrease of $4,500 in contractual maintenance equipment. Contractual maintenance equipment is that support that we pay Userful every year. Are there any questions specifically on the computers?
That 4 years, you said?
Seth says up to 4 years. My guess and what I budgeted were that we probably would have to replace a couple of Chromeboxes a year. Maybe not. I'm being very conservative in that spreadsheet estimate of year 2, 3, and 4. I did budget for 3 Chromebox replacements every year just in case. But it is possible that we could go an entire year with a cost of $500.
But this computer stuff changes so rapidly. Are we looking at anything better coming down the road in, say, a year and a half?
No, I'm sure there will be better, more, but that's how our personal computers work. That's how our staff computers work. We replace them every 4 years.
Well,
You know,
not 4
over
years.
time, they get a little bit slower.
Yep.
They don't, they update a little bit slower, but that's the cycle that we've put them on, and that would be the cycle for these Chromeboxes.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, you said that you'll be losing that support. How often have you been utilizing that?
I called them a couple of weeks ago, maybe, once every couple of months.
So yeah, it seems to justify the,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we've had issues with Userful for a significant period of time, a couple of times, like weeks, where we would be calling them every few days. We haven't had to do that for quite some time. Yeah. But that was an issue with their particular software. And they don't have, they have Google Chrome, but their solution is not a Chromebox solution.
Right.
We've also gotten more experienced at troubleshooting the initial things they tell us too.
Yeah.
So it may be that in addition to being cheaper, you may not have to call them as much because their system is more robust and it doesn't act up on you.
All right, so moving on, April and I met with Nicole Jorgensen, the finance director, to talk about our budget, and she recommended that the library aim for no more than a 2% increase in its overall budget. So given that direction, we've recommended the following items that I did put in. Library fines have been decreasing the past several years, and I'm estimating $7,000 of revenue in 2019. I did budget $7,000 in, and that's the only revenue line that's significantly different for the 2018 budget. As I previously mentioned, the taxes are input by the city finance department, so we don't have control over that piece. We also don't know at this point what Brown County commissioners are going to say about a potential increase.
So then, last month, in the minutes, it indicated that the city wanted department heads to request no more than a 5% budget increase. That's now since been dropped to 2%?
They said no more than a 5% increase in a particular line. And so I did clarify with her that that's what she meant. She meant in any particular line.
Oh.
But I'm looking at it overall because we do have lines that do increase more than 5%. And when I took what April and I were working on, and she saw what we had, that we were really pretty low because of some cost savings in other areas, she said that we could aim for 2%. We could aim for 5%. We can ask for 5%.
Right.
But she said she didn't see any issues with aiming for 2%. So there is some wiggle room. If you want to request more in a particular line, we certainly could do that and see what the city council has to say.
We've talked in the past about getting rid of the library fines. What does that change? Let's say you take that out, what does that change the budget?
It would mean about, well, we'd have to take out expenses of $7,000, or we just take it out and we see what the city council says, because that would make it closer to the 5% overall increase in the budget if we just left that $7,000 in.
When you talked about an $18,000 savings over 4 years, is that savings for year 2019? If it's 4 years, 18,000 divided by 4.
What ends up happening, Carl, is we're looking at year one as a bigger cost for our computers overall because that's when you're buying the hardware and the initial license. And years 2, 3, and 4 are less expensive because you're just maintaining some equipment. Then versus the Userful solution, year one is a higher cost because you're purchasing more equipment, and then you have a lower cost for 2 and 3, but it's only a 3-year contract. So then in year 4, you're purchasing the software and support again. So that's where the big savings comes, year 1 and year 4.
So, not only would it be an option to just eliminate that line entirely, 7,000, but another option might be to, say, drop it to 3,500, and then next year when you achieve more savings during 2020, you could probably eliminate it without impacting any really significant other portion of your budget.
Correct, because you're going to see a lot more cost savings in your computer supplies in year 2 and 3 of the budget with these Chrome boxes. Any more discussion about the library fines at this point? Okay. Oh, Carl?
Which is that I would be encouraged if we could make some positive action towards that end. And I think the savings that this new Google Chrome system offers gives us a really wonderful opportunity to head in that direction. And I would be encouraged if we could, focus in on trying to achieve that by 2020.
All right. Office supplies, I did increase that. Office supplies are just increasing, and we have a printer copier out at the service desk that seems to need more toner than I had anticipated. So I increased that $750, and general supplies $1,000 to keep pace with the rising cost of material. Communications was increased $200 to give us a little bit of advertising money for programs. We previously didn't ever budget any funds for ads and have not typically put out ads in the New Ulm paper. The Civil War Roundtable ads are funded by the Civil War Roundtable group, not by the library. Audiovisual supplies, I had mentioned this last month, the 2018 allocation's $8,000. That includes about $3,000 for Overdrive electronic materials, and that leaves about $5,000 for physical AV items. And when you look at how much our AV items circulate, when I asked our acquisitions librarian what she would like to see, if she could have more material money, she indicated that AV would be the priority. And so I've increased that line by $2,000, so more DVDs and audiobooks on CD can be purchased. Given that we were aiming for a 2% increase in the budget, I did add $2,000 to the books budget as well. Travel, conferences, and schools never had any money in it that I can ever recall, and we thought $800 might help cover costs of some professional development opportunities and provide our staff with the opportunity to go up to the cities and help defray costs. We, in the past, have asked the Friends of the Library to help fund some of that. And then you, as a library board, approved a couple of years ago some additional funds for Betty and Lisa to go to Fargo, and that came out of the budget because we knew we were underspent overall. Contractual maintenance building, we talk about it, I think, every month. Covers everything from the sidewalk and adjacent issues to our monthly garbage pickup fees. And we overspent the line the last couple of years. A couple of years ago, mostly because of the exterior sanitary sewer system that had to be replaced. I did budget for an increase of $3,000 to $10,000. So thinking that then we wouldn't have to have these conversations of where are we now with this line, with these unexpected expenses? How close are we going to be to overspending this particular line? The building is getting older. It's not getting any less expensive to fix these issues. Miscellaneous has been increased from $500 to $1,000 to cover unusual expenses. It was several years ago $1,000, and when we needed to trim, we trimmed it. And then special events programming, I mentioned last month. That line covers all programming. In 2017, you provided $3,000 so that we could fully fund summer reading, but adult programming just kind of received some of the leftovers. We don't know how it's going to shake out until after summer reading program ends. And so by providing $2,000, that would give April and our programming people the resources to schedule programs all year long. And then those recommendations total an increase of $15,875, and that's right at 2% of the total 2018 budget. And then the question came up last month about household internet services, and I added what communication I received from Larry Hildebrand at Comcast, that he estimates 60 to 65% of households in New Ulm have some level of wired internet. When you factor in cell phones, he's estimating that 75% or more people have access to the internet. He's also seeing people streaming more than using cable television. And then April and I talked about the hotspots, and we're recommending no additional hotspots at this time, but we recommend that we could increase the waiting period for rechecking out from 24 hours to 48. We did budget $15,000 for phase 2 of the carpet replacement project in 2019, and this would come out of fund balance. Fund balance is currently at $357,163, which is about 45% of the 2018 budget, and best practice is 35% to 50%. When I talked to the maintenance technician, Jay, about using fund balance for any projects, he indicated it identifying sidewalk repair between the buildings. So we're talking about that entryway that was constructed about 13 years ago or so. On the Broadway side, it's dipped down a little bit lower, so water's pooling down there, and we do get water in our storage area. And Jay thinks if we reconstructed that and constructed it so it's diverting the water away from the building, it might help with that leaking that we do have into the meeting room, or not meeting room, into the storage area. And we think that we could get that repaired, as well as any other sidewalk issues, for about $20,000. You could do it two ways. You could say now that you'd be identifying that as a project that could come out of fund balance. It would go to the city council just as part of the overall budget. You could just wait, and then it could be presented to you as an option next year. You'd have the bids in front of you at that time, and then decide that you want to do it, and it would go to the city council on a separate resolution. So it's not something that, even if you said now, yes, you would want it, you could still change your mind next year. Or you could say, we'll just wait and we'll think about it and deal with it next year as a specific project. Either way, it would have to come out of fund balance. And as I said, there is room in fund balance. If you look at the carpet and the sidewalk, and we saved no money in 2018, it would drop fund balance to 35%. And then finally, you must approve a recommended budget at your July 12th meeting. The budget's due to the finance department the next day, and then will be forwarded to city council for final approval. And so I guess what I'm asking from you today is, if anything seems very much out of the realm of possible, April and I are going to work on this tomorrow so that we can have something pretty much ready to go for you for next month.
So you're talking just between the museum and the library? That's the piece?
Yes.
Okay.
And you can not do anything about that. I did want to plant that seed, though. And if you don't want to deal with it at this time, it can certainly be on our radar and come back to you as a separate item to discuss next year.
So preliminary discussions on that, does that area have to be completely redone, existing torn out, and then re-leveled or whatever?
That's what
Couldn't-
Jay is
So
indicating.
we couldn't just do it like mud jacking or anything like that to make the, raise the concrete and then keep the water running away?
I don't know enough about it to say.
When you say it's sinking, is the whole thing sinking or just one area?
What Jay has indicated to me is that it's kind of sloping toward the building.
Probably settling.
Okay, it's just settling
So
down.
it sounds like, yeah, best thing might be to tear it all out and then
Yeah, that's what it
slope
sounds
it
like.
properly and then reapply new concrete. But I'm of the notion just to wait and do it as a separate line item later on, rather than worry about it now. But that's just me. Okay, anyone else wants to jump in?
Well, I would concur. Has the city building inspector had an opportunity to analyze the situation?
No.
That would be helpful to include his input into our deliberation on that issue. And I would agree that a
It could
separate
also be that
discussion.
when we do have other professionals look at it, they may have different ideas on, you know, a less expensive way of, rather than doing a whole replace, maybe they can do something else.
Yeah, it certainly can be brought up as its own issue next year.
Yeah, because in 13 years, that sidewalk can't be used that heavily anyway.
It's
So
not,
it's just gotta be,
But the biggest thing is the
Just gotta be settled.
infiltration of the water into the storage area, right?
yeah.
right.
Any other issues on of the budget that Chris has presented that we want to discuss at this time to make things easier for April next month?
Thank you.
It's a lot to be thrust upon her in her first month, but trial by fire, right?
So basically, one of the big decisions facing us for our budget is the $7,000 for fines. If we want to take that out, we have the option of putting it on in addition to the budget that you've prepared and hoping that the city council will approve our request, and then it's an all or nothing deal. Or if we take it out of the budget as you're looking at it now, then $7,000 has to come out of somewhere else. And I guess for once, we're seeing increases to the number of books that we can buy and our AV supplies and our programming, and I really don't want to lose that. I think those are very important. On the other hand, it would be nice not to have to deal with the hassle of the fines. But I don't want it to come at the expense of the programming and the books and the AV supplies.
Is the programming, the books, the AV supplies, though, is that is that gonna be an ongoing request each and every year? We're gonna be increasing that a little bit?
I would say probably not every year. Just as we asked for $3,000 for the 2017 budget for programming, we didn't ask for anything for 2018. We kept it at $3,000. I would anticipate moving along those same lines where not necessarily a percentage increase every year, unless that's something that the library board would like to consider, that, you know, every year 0.5% or 1% increase in those areas.
But then you're indicating that generally speaking, the money that is automatically in there does cover what we need, what we do need going forward,
Most of the time,
most
yes.
of the time.
All right. Over the past few months, we've heard arguments for and against removing of fines. Right now, $7,000 is a pretty good chunk of change for revenue. And then if we were to take it out, once we take it out, reintroducing it would probably be more of a hassle than taking it out. I like Carl's idea of, you know, let's evaluate what we would save with the potential savings with the Chromebox solution. But at this point, it's untried, it's untested. We don't know if there is gonna, you know, if the estimated savings are gonna come to fruition and or how much of that. But Carl did mention, you know, if we could get this in by maybe the 2020 budget, so we could maybe utilize next year to get a good baseline to see if the Chromebox solution is indeed reaping some of the savings that we estimate. And then at that time, we could look at, or relook at the issue of the fines. And if the savings are coming to fruition, we can then start looking at, okay, maybe phasing out the fines, maybe doing it, maybe not all at once, but maybe start looking at, okay, we can do it for books, but keep it for DVDs or vice versa, whatever.
When I look at the whole thing, I try to take the revenue part of it out, because I think that's definitely going away. The only thing that I can remember when I was a kid, and can remember my parents telling me, okay, you got books that are due. Okay, you have to pay the nickel or the dime, so you may damn sure you got your stuff in. And I just wonder if we lose that. I don't know. Maybe I'm 60. No, I'm damn near 70, so. So that was a long time ago. But I do remember those things, and I think sometimes we lose that. The revenue part of this, I mean, but I'm sure at the same point, if somebody comes to you and say, hey, I forgot this, I cannot afford this, you're gonna just waive it in the first place.
We do.
Yes.
Every situation is unique.
Right.
And we will waive fines.
Yeah.
And there are times too when, yes, I've had overdue books. I hate to admit it, but I have had that. And, and say, well, you owe 20 cents and, throw 50 cents at it and say, call her good kind of thing. So there's the other side of that too, that there's people that can more than afford
Right.
to pay an overdue thing too, and they usually just, round up kind of thing. So, there's plus and minuses to both that.
Yeah, to me, it's just responsibility. That's the only thing I think of, so.
I think fines become disproportionate depending on the individuals, and the fine impacts some more than others, obviously. And sometimes it's young people or kids. And, the mission of the library is not necessarily to teach responsibility as it is to provide open and free access to information. And it seems to me that, we have enough anecdotal evidence just within our own library of folks who get locked out, who can't check out materials. 20 cents or a dollar may be a lot more to them and almost insurmountable than it is to me. So I'm not so sure, as the writer of one of the articles that Chris shared with us suggests, that is it the library's mission morally to teach responsibility to return things. I don't know. For me, their mission is more inclined to make things available, information available, and to be a resource for people. We provide a lot of free services at the library to folks from all walks of life for any number of different things, and it would seem to me that we rely on this amount of money would better serve our patrons and staff if we didn't rely so heavily on fines. And Vince suggested that perhaps incrementally we do it, and this might be our opportunity to begin that process of doing it incrementally. And it would be interesting to see what effect reducing the fine line to $3,500 has on our overall budget in terms of, is it 2% or 2.5% increase, or what that does to that bottom line number. We at this point don't know. From what Chris has mentioned, a big part of our budget with professional wages, where the city's going to wind up with that, and if it's 2% rather than 2.5%, we might still be at their recommended threshold for overall budget increase. So I'd like to see what that option looks like in terms of the overall impact on the budget.
Carl, if you're indicating that the library decreases the revenue to $3,500, then that would lead the library staff to institute what Vince mentioned perhaps is no fines for books, or no fines for, on kids' cards, or, you'd want to make some kind of
Because
decision.
Line in half, because
Or we drop down to.
dime now and it
yeah.
could go back to a nickel or
Go to a
whatever.
nickel.
what you're saying right now is the $7,000 is roughly a real figure.
Yeah, it's just an estimate.
Right, but I mean, over experience, this is revenue that is coming in at that amount.
Yeah.
It's not a percent of anything, it's just real money.
Right.
Yeah.
Personally, I think fines give me a little more incentive to bring the items back in a timely manner. If I didn't have to pay a fine, I might go, well, I'll wait till next week.
Yep.
And I think that's true for a lot of people. I mean, it's not that I can't afford to pay a fine, that's not the thing, but I think it does give people incentive to return things in a timely manner.
But you and I, Bernice, were that same age. Let's ask Dave, now he's younger.
I remember talking to my wife about this after the meeting one day, and she said, "Well, but that's the motivator." Because, I mean, and we do get reminders, especially we check out a lot of children's books for our two kids, and
Right.
it's, we get the reminders. It's kind of nice to get that email reminder, just, heads up, your materials are due on Wednesday. And it's kind of, it does motivate us to get going back to the library, so.
One piece I haven't mentioned is we just had an upgrade to our automation system today. And we have decided to implement automatic renewals for items. So if nobody's waiting on your item, it will automatically be renewed. And so we know that will decrease some fines.
So will there be a notification to that effect too, though, so that people know that
Right.
okay.
But then conversely, if you do need the book, you'll still get the reminder that
It has to come back.
it has to come back.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, Hennepin County instituted this a number of months ago, and I have a card there, and I was so happy when I got the automatic renewal reminder, and immediately let Seth know at TDS that this was happening. Could we have it happen here? And Sierra, our automation system, has put it in place. And it's a test. We're still in the testing phase on how exactly this is gonna work. Is it gonna work the way we expect? Is it just started today?
So if you've got a low usage book that nobody takes out, and this one person who's taking it out, and there's never anybody waiting on it, they get perpetual. Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure that, the book is yours now, you can keep it.
It's 2 renewals.
Okay.
But if it's someone on a waiting list for a new book where there's already 35 of us in the system, they have to bring it back.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, where do we stand with the fine issue? Keep it as it is, and then wait till, look at it again at next year's budget after we've seen the potential for the Chromebox savings as well as the library structural or the head count? Or do we, start something now and then try and make up the difference, or?
I look at it a totally different way. I don't look at it in the savings from the one as to the other. This is real money. I think at some time, I can visualize the way that I hear you talk, and I've heard April talk and everything else, that at some time in the future, this is just gonna go away. That seems to be the way that everybody's going. But like I say, I just think about it in terms of responsibility, and so as far as I'm concerned, we just leave it there yet and don't touch it, but that's me talking.
I say if it works, don't fix it.
I'm happy with waiting for, to see what happens with the Chromebox.
And I would like to see it halved and reduce fines by half and just leave every other item in the budget as it is. And let the city council react to it. I don't think we have to change any of the other line items. And that obviously might make our budget go for whatever their target threshold 2% is, but we still as yet don't know what their final number on wages is going to be, and that may bring us back down to where that threshold is. That's my opinion.
Is that something we can do for next month's meeting? I don't want to get into a long, involved discussion, next month for the budget, but if that's something that, we can look at, and then we can hopefully make a quick decision at that time.
Sure, April and I are gonna work on this tomorrow, and we can make those adjustments. And as far as where you're going to decide how the savings are going to happen, whether it's on items or age group, that'd be something that you could discuss between now and December if the city council approves that particular recommendation from the board.
Well, are we moving that way then? Is that what we're talking about doing, or are we talking about just leaving it?
Well, we could have an option A and an option B
Okay.
budget.
Yeah.
And the bottom line number, I believe if I understood it correctly, Nicole said shoot for a budget increase of 2%.
Yes,
And if you decrease fines by $3,500, and Chris's budget right now is at 2% the way she's presented it, or whatever the number happens to be, I'm not certain. What is that decrease of revenue of $3,500 due to that 2% increase? Does it make it 2.2?
more like 2.75.
Okay, so
That's rough.
$3,500 is a 0.75 effect on the budget. If the city doesn't increase wages by 2.5%, but 2%, certainly that'll bring that number below 2%, or whatever that number happens to be for wages. But they may allow us to be at 2.75, and we don't have to change any other line items in the budget. I mean, 0.75%, I think, is very doable number. And, I guess if we want to decide, next month to go with that or stay with what we've got, we can decide at that point. But I think it's worth looking at to see how those two budgets lay up against one another.
By next month, will we know what the city's decision is on wages? Okay.
Well, we should have a best indicator. The best indicator you're going to get before the city council makes a final decision.
That'd probably be satisfactory.
They don't approve it until December. You're never going to know for sure, but
what I thought.
what the finance department recommends will be in by July 12th.
Okay. So if everybody's happy with that, let's do the budget A, budget B
Yep.
kind of thing. We'll review it next month and
Yep.
maybe make a decision at that time, just based on the numbers, and not hopefully keep emotions out of it.
So move.
All right, anything else then for the budget discussion? Because we're already over, but we got a boatload of resolutions to go through. Some of those will go pretty quickly, though. All right, so we will do resolution number 2018-18 first, which is on page 32. And that is for approving donations and memorials through June 6, 2018. The attached list describes donations received by the library in fiscal year 2018 through June 6th. This includes general donations and memorials, as well as donations made directly to the Children's Department and the Memory Lab project. The Library Board of the New Ulm Public Library accepts these donations with gratitude to the donors, and then we'll determine if we're gonna approve this. And then on pages 33 and through 35, lists the monetary donations, as well as all the other types of gifts, you know, the physical donations in terms of books, DVDs, and then other items. There was even a 8-track player in there and some 8-track tapes, which I thought was pretty cool. So I will then entertain a motion to accept or approve the donations and memorials that have been made through June 6, 2018.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carried. Now we'll bounce up to resolution number 2018-16, which is on page 30. And this is for the approving of $1,000 expenditure of donation for the purposes of for the purchase of books. The library requests $1,000 out of Fund 212 donations and memorials for the purchase of books. These funds were donated in May 2018 by Doris Crone and will be expended as follows: $500 for adult fiction, $250 for adult nonfiction, $250 for children's books. It is expected that these funds will be expended by December 2018. Note, in 2010, the New Ulm Public Library Board approved resolution number 2010-10, approving expenditures of donations received as designated or memorial, which states as follows: for all individual donations of $500 or more, the library director will request authority within 90 days from the library board to expend those funds for the designated or memorial purposes identified by the donor. So I will then entertain a motion to approve $1,000 expenditure of donation for the purchase of books.
I so move.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a number of seconds for approving the $1,000 expenditure. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. The next one is resolution number 2018-17, which is on page 31. Approving $1,500 expenditure of donation for movie license and Legos. The library requests $1,500 out of Fund 212 donations and memorials for the purchase of one-year Swank movie screening license and Legos for the children's room. The Optimist Club has donated the costs of the movie license to the library annually, beginning in 2009. The movie license allows the library to hold public movie screenings, including the New Ulm Film Society screenings. The library has held a monthly Lego Club since January 2018, which has had high attendance, indicating the need for a larger supply of Legos. These funds were donated in May 2018 by the Optimist Club of New Ulm and will be expended as follows: $500 for one-year Swank movie license and $1,000 for Legos. It is expected that these funds will be expended by July 2018. Note, again, the same note as before, in 2010, the New Ulm Public Library Board approved resolution number 2010-10, approving expenditures of donations received as designated or memorial, which states as follows: for all individual donations $500 or more, the library director will request authority within 90 days of the library board to expend those funds for the designated or memorial purposes identified by the donor. So I will entertain a motion to approve $1,500 expenditure of a donation for movie license and for Legos.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. So any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, now we go to resolution number 2018-19, which is on page 37. This is the approving recommendation to dispose of surplus library items. The library has a large surplus of magazine file boxes, approximately 225 of them, which are currently in library storage. These magazine files have been unused for the past several years because the library has decreased the number of print magazines to which it subscribes and has decreased the number of years that it retains back issues of magazines. The library does not anticipate a future need for such a large number of magazine files. And a photo is attached on page 38. It shows what they look like, basically just those are plastic, right? The plastic containers. The library recommends selling 100 magazine file boxes for $2 each. They would be available for sale on a first-come, first-served basis during regular library hours. Revenue from sales would go to Fund 211-5500-36200 miscellaneous. So I will entertain a motion to approve recommending the disposal, or to dispose of the surplus library items as described.
I so move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
You're selling 100, keeping 125?
Yeah, approximately, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So now, if you do not sell all 100 of them, what happens to them? Do they just remain in storage? Are we going to trash them?
We've done this before, and we've always sold them all.
Really?
Yes.
I'm surprised. Okay.
They
That's
go.
All right.
I'm not
well,
concerned
so-
about it.
Okay, that's good to know. I just was wondering. I think it seemed like a lot of them, but
Yep.
so. And I know that you guys also, it seems like annually get rid of older vintage magazines. So maybe the people who take these could use the holders to them. All right. Any other discussion? All right. Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, now, the next one is resolution number 2018-20. This is the first reading only. It's on page 39, and it's approving updates to the gifts policy. The library's policy related to donations and memorials was last updated way back in 2003. Attached is a draft of the updated policy with deleted material and added material noted. These changes are recommended by the library director and have been approved by the city attorney. Major changes are as follows. Number 1, changing the name of the policy from donation and memorial fund acceptance policies to gifts policy for brevity. Number 2, addition of information drawn directly from the city charter for clarification. Number 3, clarification that undesignated cash gifts will be deposited in the donations miscellaneous account, which is the current practice. Number 4, deletion of the memorial funds section for simplification. Number 5, clarification of recognition and evaluation processes. Number 6, updated receipt forms to reflect current practice. After a second reading and approval by the library board, the policy will go into effect immediately. So the next few pages show the draft with the strike through indicating deleted material and italics indicating added material. Pages 43 and 44 show the new forms, the new updated forms to be used for receipts. And then pages 45 through 49 show the existing policy or the original policy with the current forms. So I can read through this if we.
I move you waive the reading.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody have any objections to waiving the reading? Okay, so now will this be placed out on the,
It is posted
Okay.
online with the library board packet currently. It's been up there since
Okay.
since the beginning of this week.
so then there's no further need for anything on this resolution until next month when we will be, it'll be the second reading and then the adoption.
One last thing, then, you're doing it this is just for clarification purposes only?
Right. Since 2003, we've just kind of changed some of the way we're doing things, and it just seems that our policy should reflect current practice. I think things change because we find a simpler way of doing it. And our policy didn't change to reflect that, so it seemed beyond time that we bring everything into line. The other piece is that the receipt for the donations, it may appear to be a little more complex. We've added a lot of more designated items, but this actually provides donors the opportunity to see all of the ways that their money could be used.
Yeah. And the biggest change I noticed too was just basically taking out the majority of the memorial funds designation. All right, so that'll be for next month's meeting. Stay tuned. And then resolution number 2018-21, first reading and adoption for approving the landscape plan for a planter facing Broadway. The library has a raised planter located on the north of the wood doors facing Broadway, in which 2 trees and scattered hostas are located. The area is due for improvement, which can be coincided with landscaping the Wandagog sculpture area. The attached bid of $201.90 is from River Creek Nursery to prepare the area for planting hostas. If approved, this work would be scheduled immediately. Library staff intend to request donations of hostas from the public, and these would be planted by volunteers who will also work on the plantings in the sculpture area. Funds in 211-5500-350010 miscellaneous would be used to cover this expense. The landscaping committee has reviewed the bid and recommends the approval. So the next page gives kind of a breakdown of that $201.90, what that entails, and again, it's basically preparing the area. And then page 52 shows a current picture of what that area looks like, and you can see the 2 groupings of birch trees that are in there, as well as the smattering of hostas that are in the back there. The rest of it's kind of weeds.
Just for
So,
clarifications, the trees do remain.
Yes.
Yep.
so I will entertain a motion to approve the landscaping plan for the planter facing Broadway.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Does the library feel that there's going to be any problem with getting hostas?
No.
Have you had this experience in the past?
No, not this experience, but
Okay.
I've mentioned it to a couple of people who thought it was a great idea and are ready to bring their own hostas.
Yeah, and hostas, I mean, you don't have to bring the whole plant. You can just split them and they
Yep.
come right back, so. All right, any other discussion? All right, hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carried. And the final resolution for today is resolution number 2018-22, approving the donation of landscaping by the Wandagog Monument Committee, Inc. The Wandagog Monument Committee, Inc. requests that the library board accept its donation of landscaping that will beautify the Wandagog sculpture located in front of the library. A drawing of the design is attached. The committee has secured the funds to contract with a designer/installer, and the project would proceed immediately if approved by the library board and city council. Volunteers would be utilized to help with the planting and ongoing maintenance, such as watering. The monetary value of the donation is $5,250. A local landscaper estimated that annual maintenance fees for the area would be $200, and this would be absorbed by the library's operating budget. The landscape committee has reviewed the plans and recommends the approval. So on page 54, you can kind of see the layout of the area hand-drawn that indicates, you know, where the sculpture currently is, as well as the light. Those areas would not change, but then everything else would be added. We have the 2 benches already in our possession. Those would be positioned, and then the landscaping would be as shown with all the different kinds of shrubbery and flowers, and then the rock area, which I'm assuming is going to be cut back a little bit. Won't be as wide as it is.
The rock area that is up against the wall, the windows of the actual library,
Yeah.
that will be scaled back.
And also, I think right in front of the bushes and behind the sculpture, those are not gonna go in now, are they?
Right, plants right in front of the bench, they're going to be strategically placed around the bench.
Yep.
And there's a picture on page 55 that kind of shows it as it currently is. Yeah, the reason we don't have walkways going through there is because we would be unable to comply with ADA regulations because of the slope of the sidewalks getting up into that area. So, as Chris mentioned, we would have strategically placed shrubs and grass or whatever, and so that the intent is that people can go in there to utilize the benches if they wanted to.
By taking the plants out of exactly where they were, hopefully they won't get trampled down this way by people going in, so.
And
So-
there will be a retaining wall in the front.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it does note that there will be a retaining wall. There will
Is that-
be some,
Oh, yeah.
some
Yep.
prep work.
Is that gonna be a fixed height, or is that gonna go, is it gonna go lower
I think it's
from
gonna
the,
follow the, probably
lower
follow
from
the
the
slope.
south?
Right, it'll be taller on the south and lower
Taller
on the
south,
north.
and smaller on the north, okay?
So instead of any kind of, pathway, is it going to be grass instead to get to those benches, or it's just wood chips, or?
I'm guessing wood chips, but we have some discretion over that.
It just, according to the building inspector, it just can't look like a path.
But then if we did have to, we'd have to comply with the ADA regulations, and
To
then
fake
that would be a
people out.
lot of work.
What would be a good alternative?
That's what we talked about.
Yeah. And we went over and over this, and it was a number of iterations of this design. So it's still gonna, we think it's gonna beautify the area, and then if people wanna utilize it for sitting there, they can certainly do that. All right, so I will entertain a motion for approving the donation of landscaping by the Wandagog Monument Committee, Inc.
So move.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions, concerns? All right, hearing none, then all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. One last thing before, which is kind of, it's part of the landscaping. When we did have the landscaping group meet with the Wandagog Monument Committee, Elwood was there, and I had asked them about an update for the Noam Public Utilities switch that they had asked us to put, to evaluate putting in on our property, because I hadn't heard anything on that. And he indicated that it looks like they found a resolution, they're going to be putting it up by the old middle school. So we should not be seeing them back here again asking us to reevaluate or reconsider. So I just wanted to give everyone an update on that.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for the past 9 years. It's been a joy to work in this community and work at this library, and the library boards from 2009 to now. I've been so impressed with the investment that you've all given to the library, and thank you for your work.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to just add that it was 9 years ago this month that Library Board Chair Dustin Cross and Director Larry Halafsa and I conducted a phone interview in the basement of this building, and we were calling a candidate in some obscure city in Georgia. The candidate, was from Iowa, so you can imagine our apprehension. But I think we soon discovered during that phone conversation that we indeed had a terrific candidate, and 2 weeks later, after meeting with Chris here in New Ulm and visiting some more with her about the position of Assistant Library Director, we knew we had a terrific opportunity to hire someone of high caliber. And I think Chris has demonstrated that not only in her years as the Assistant Library Director, but as the Director which she took over on June 16th in 2014. I worked in the library, the city staff for almost 2 years of her tenure as director, and there was, I don't think, any supervisor of any department more invested in their staff or the mission of their department or their professional and personal involvement with our community. And I think Roseburg is getting a wonderful library director. Unfortunately, Chris will not be here to begin her 5th year as director and will waive any eligibility to the big lump sum, but we'll miss Chris, and we'll certainly want to wish her the very best, and we obviously are looking forward to working closely as well with April in the days ahead. But I think perhaps from our board we could officially make recognition and a thank you of service to Chris for her years here.
Thank you.
I agree.
Same here.
Haven't changed your mind, have you? Still time. All right. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone.